Today is Sunday, November 22nd, 2020, and this is Flashpoint. Hi, welcome to Flashpoint. It has been quite a week. Have I said that before? Yes, pretty much every week of 2020. This week marked a new phase of measures announced by Governor Whitmer aimed at slowing the very worrisome increases in COVID cases and hospitalizations. The announcement came last Sunday night, which meant business owners were given all of about 48 hours to figure their way around a new set of orders. It means more people out of work right as we head into the holiday season. In fact, across the country, food banks are being pushed to their limits. And here's just a quick thought that if you have been lucky enough not to be severely hurt by the pandemic, you might spare a few dollars on the meals that others are going to be struggling to put on the table this week, and perhaps for the foreseeable future. Now, it also has implications for one of Detroit's most cherished traditions. We already knew America's Thanksgiving parade was going to be a different affair this year. A little later on, we'll talk about what you can expect from us coming up on Thanksgiving morning. And we also saw a week that gave us a little whiplash at the Wayne County Board of Canvassers, a body that seldom gets the kind of national attention it saw this week. Expected to certify the county's vote, the two Republican board members changed their minds and voted no, but then after a very contentious and at times angry public comment period, changed their votes back to yes. A day and a conversation with the president later, they wanted to rescind those votes, though there really apparently isn't any way for them to do that. It all added up to more fuel on the fires of division across America. Is there any way for us to get on the same page, be it for the election or the pandemic or the myriad other issues facing the nation? This morning, we'll convene a group that no doubt has been thinking about that, members of the Michigan congressional delegation. They're up first today on Flashpoint. You know, I always feel fortunate when I get a meeting together of at least part of the Michigan congressional delegation, and we've got that today. I'm very happy to have with us incoming Congresswoman from the 10th District. Congratulations again going out to Republican Lisa Mclean there on the upper left-hand side. Democratic Congresswoman Debbie Dingell from the 12th District, and at the bottom of the screen from the 9th Congressional District, Democrat Andy Levin. I will note Republican Pete Meyer, who won the election to succeed Justin Amash in the 3rd District, was scheduled to be with us, but he is canceled. So, Ms. Mclean, you'll have to hold forth for the grand old party. And I would like to start with you. On Friday, the man you're replacing, Paul Mitchell, co-authored an op-ed in the Detroit News with Alyssa Slotkin, and the two of them were basically urging the president to begin the transition to the Biden presidency. Do you agree with that?
Here's what I agree with, is I think the process and democracy is critical. And I think we're in the middle of a pandemic. We have more absentee ballots than we've ever had before.
Sure.
And I think the process, we can do a heck of a lot better on the process that we're doing right now. So I think it's important to get it right, because when we get it right, both sides, regardless who wins, but when we get it right, it's easier for both sides to move on and go forward in a positive fashion as opposed to a negative fashion. And I really think right now what we need is we need to make sure that the process, and we focus on the process to get it better and to get it right so we can move forward as a country.
Well, when you say whoever wins, does that suggest that you're not sure who has won this election?
Yes, I think we need to make sure that we have counted every legal vote and that every legal vote is transparent and has been counted accurately.
150,000 votes or so, though, separate the two in Michigan. Do you feel like there's something in play there?
I don't know. That's why we have to go through the process. That's why we have due process, and that's why we have rules and procedures to make sure that everything is transparent. And I think if you go back to Florida in 2000, we had one state that had a lot of discrepancies. Today, we have a lot more than one state that have a lot of discrepancies. So it's November, it's almost Thanksgiving. We still have some time, and I think it's important to pause and just make sure we have it right.
Let me let Congresswoman Dingell jump in on that. Congresswoman, you were, I know, pretty upset by what you saw at the Wayne County Board of Canvassers this past week, but what are your thoughts about Ms. Mclean's comments?
Well, first of all, I want to welcome her to the delegation and say we look forward to working with her, and we are all committed to working together as we begin the new Congress for the people of Michigan. Here's what my concerns are right now, Devin. I think every vote needs to be counted, and we need to, every Republican vote, every Democratic vote, every person that voted, vote needs to be counted. But we also, what's happening now, I fear, is that people are deliberately trying to extend the certification period out. They're trying to undermine people's confidence in the results of this election, attack the integrity of the results, and undermine people's belief in our democracy, and are attacking the fundamental pillars of our democracy. That's what now has me concerned. And I think that I hope somebody will do a 101 in what happens when ballots are counted. And we keep hearing about huge discrepancies. Well, here's a reality. It's called balancing. So when you're counting absentee ballot votes, an envelope comes in that doesn't have a ballot inside of it, but it was registered as coming in. Livonia had more off, numbers were more off than the city of Detroit's were.
Right.
But nobody raised an issue. As a fact, one of the Wayne County canvassers was willing to certify the cities outside of Detroit. And by the way, this happens in every city across the country, every town across the country. But people need to understand it, because when you just hear what you're hearing, you're like, oh my God, something's wrong. I dug into it, but not a lot of people care the nitty-gritty of it as much as some of us do. And that's what I think matters.
Congressman Levin, Lisa Mclean is right about one thing. The process can still play out here for a while without us bumping up against a debt. We've got weeks actually still to go before the Electoral College meets, for example. Do you believe we're already at a crisis point with, for instance, Joe Biden not being able to get daily intelligence briefings, things like that? Or are we not at a crisis point yet and everybody needs to relax?
Well, I think everybody should relax. And in that spirit, let me join in welcoming Lisa Mclean. I look forward to working with her. We share Macomb County, so it's going to be great to work with you, Lisa. But Devin, let me be very clear about this. What's happening now is not the hurly-burly of politics or making sure the process works or some, partisan tussling. This is outside of the bounds of democracy. Joe Biden won Michigan by 14 times what Donald Trump won Michigan by in 2016. There's no question about it. There's nothing in dispute. All of President Trump's lawsuits have fallen completely flat. There's not one scintilla of actual evidence that there's a problem. And so the Wayne County Board of Canvassers should have certified. It's not something in their discretion or judgment. They were legally required to certify. The transition should have begun on the Saturday when it was clear that Joe Biden, what is that, two weeks ago at least. So, and it's outside the bounds of a democracy. And also, it's dangerous for the people of the United States. We're in the middle of a pandemic, as Representative-elect Mclean said. We have had 252,000 Americans die. We're having more cases every day than in the spring by far. This is a crisis. The president and the president-elect should be working together to move our country forward, not having the president just lost in his fantasies about maintaining power against the will of the voters of the United States.
In fact, Ms. Mclean, that's what I want to get to next. Then we're still seeing, obviously, so much division over the election. I'm wondering how in the world we get together on something now like the pandemic. I was in your district last weekend at the Walmart up in Sandusky, and I would say somewhere between a fourth and a third of the people in the Walmart were not wearing masks. I'm curious as to what you think we need to do now moving forward as a nation to try to come together. We've obviously got a lot of bitterness and division in the state of Michigan over the governor's new orders. How do we move forward and get everybody on the same page?
I think the number one thing we need to do to move forward is we need to remember that we are all Americans. We are all on the same team. We all live in the greatest nation there is, and that's America. And that's evidenced by every day how many people are trying to get into this country versus how many people are trying to get out. We're all Americans. We're all on the same team. How we come together is we have a belief in people. We have a belief in each other, and we start from a positive premise. We start from a premise as to what is right. The easiest thing that we can do is pick apart what is wrong. But it's very difficult for people to come together on what is right. So let's start with, let's look at positively, what have we done right? I believe in the power of people. Look at how quickly we have moved from the start of this pandemic to now. We have better treatments. Pretty soon we're going to have, rather quickly, I think we're going to have a vaccine, which is unheard of. And that's because people got together, they collaborated, and they innovated. And they focused on what can we do together to move this.
Did our video lock up there just a bit, or is she? Oh, Lisa, sorry, go ahead. Can we agree that a mask is right? Oh, we just lost her for a second. Hopefully we'll be able to get her back here with her link. But let me let Debbie Dingell then weigh in then on how do we move forward, given that there's so much disagreement over over the response so far to the pandemic.
We need a national COVID plan. We need somebody who is going to lead. I have no idea how the wearing of masks became so political in this country. Lisa was very articulate in saying we are Americans. We're the United States of America, and we're the strongest when we're united. But we haven't had a national plan, and I simply don't understand how it became so partisan. Hope is around the corner. A vaccine has been developed, but right now the CDC is telling us to not travel for the holidays, with all three of us having to get on a plane to go home still. So, but to only spend it with your immediate pod, your immediate family. We all have to pull together to stop community spread right now so that there is the hope of the vaccine down the road in a few months.
We've got Lisa Mclean back with us. Lisa, we lost you just as I was asking you. You're talking about doing what we can agree on is right. Can we not agree that a mask is right?
So I'm a big believer in individual freedoms, and I'm a big believer in if you feel comfortable, it is in the best interest for you to wear a mask and protect yourself and protect others. But I want to be clear on the individual freedoms and to follow. Everyone talks about following the experts, which I think is critical. We need to follow the experts. But the issue is we haven't been in this situation before. So to me, let's again pause and let's do what's right and in the best interest of ourselves, our family, our friends, and our country. And I believe in the word and. I believe we can do a lot more with and than we can do for.
Let me let Congressman Levin weigh in here. Go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, this is a mask, Devin. It's a two cloth on both sides. It's scientifically proven that it protects other people very well, and it protects me to some extent. That's not opinion. That's science. It's nothing about my freedom. I cherish my freedoms as much as anybody. But when we found out that seatbelts save lives, we mandated them. When we found out that airbags save lives, we made the auto companies put airbags in them. It's not a restriction of my freedom to put on my gosh darn seatbelt. And we are talking about an epidemic where we're unnecessarily losing tens of thousands of Americans. Kids, middle-aged people, old folks. And let's talk about our country being the greatest country. I think of my dad collecting gum wrappers in World War II to get a little tin foil and having victory gardens. It was shared sacrifice. Devin, it's not a very big sacrifice for me to wear a mask in the interest of my fellow Americans. Sign me up.
I've got just a short time left, and I wanted to go around to each of you and ask you what you think is something that you're afraid is not much attention, is not getting much attention right now while we're focused on the pandemic, while we're focused on fighting over the election. Is there something that you want to take into this new term that you're afraid we're not spending any time on? Congresswoman Dingell, let me start with you.
There's so many issues I fear that we're not paying attention to. We've got to pay more attention to the environment. Hurricanes and wildfires, et cetera, have gotten worse. But I'm in the more immediate, quite frankly, Devin, the budget to fund the government expires December 11th.
Yeah.
And I sincerely hope we won't let the government shut down in the middle of a pandemic.
Congressman Levin, you.
Yes, I mean, I would also, I have such big goals for the future, but we urgently need to pass relief for the American people during the COVID pandemic. For unemployed people, checks for every family, help for local governments, help for our educators. That's the only way that we'll both save lives and be able to reopen our economy. So that's number one on my list.
And finally, Congresswoman-elect Lisa Mclean, what do you want to take with you to Washington to focus on right now that isn't getting that attention?
We need to have a focus of the big picture of jobs and the economy. We're so hyper-focused right now on COVID, which is real. I respect COVID. I don't fear COVID. And I believe in the American people, and I believe in the American people can figure out how to be safe and stay safe and figure out how to have a prosperous economy. I believe we can do both. The power of the human mind is second to none, and we don't take that into consideration when we take a look at things. Look at how far we've come. So jobs in the economy is clearly at the top of my list.
I'm so glad we were able to get all of you together. Congratulations to all of you on your electoral victories and the upcoming new term. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks. We'll take a quick break. We'll bring Nolan Finley and Stephen Henderson in next on Flashpoint on Local 4.